Today's chat with Ashley is around CSnet implementations, project management, and an organisational view, which we think is really important because we often get organisations who are either thinking of implementing CSnet or they've decided to join CSnet and they're thinking about what resources they need on their side and what they need to be thinking about, and often ask us questions. So it's the perfect opportunity to talk to you, Ashley, who's got lots of experience in project management and also having been through a very large CSnet implementation. So we thought as the agenda for today's chat, introduce you, Ashley, and then talk about why an organisation's project management is important, and then some of the things really grounded and practical about how to think about it in terms of the kickoff, thinking about roles, tools and templates that people can use that you're happy to share, and for us to talk about, thinking about business benefits and putting that, keep coming back to putting that at the centre of what you're doing as part of the implementation, and then talking about some lessons learned. So very excited to be chatting to you, and thanks very much for your time. Look, on the why it's important, it's a big organisational investment, isn't it? For an organisation to say, yes, let's change our system, or let's go from not having a system to having a system. And, you know, the data around the success of technology implementations, you can see here that we've shared some recent data, which is up to 84% of them fail. They fail to meet their intended goals, and often that is attributed to these things that are on the dot points, which is insufficient planning, resistance to change internally, lack of leadership in supporting the implementation, poor alignment with business strategy, not clear why are we doing this and really what are those business benefits that we talked about, and then inadequate user engagement and training. How do we make sure that we bring people along the way? And the other data piece here that we thought we'd share is that 70% of those projects don't deliver the expected results, and 75% settle for diluted value, which means that even post-implementation, they don't get the results that they're really looking for. So today's chat is really about increasing the chances of success, and it's a really important subject and something that we're keen to chat with more. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Ashley, and you're going to go through a little agenda, and keen to talk to you about those areas that we've been looking at.
Thank you, Mandy. So just to do a quick introduction of myself, so I've been working in both process re-engineering and software delivery for around 20 years now. So I started as a business analyst, and then I've become a product owner and project manager. So I've done a lot of software implementation, system automations, and process improvements. And I think along my journey, these are some of the lessons I've learned around why some of these key things are really important to link to making a project successful, not only for a system implementation and data, but also from an employee perspective, and getting people to really want to take on board that system and use it. So what we're going to cover off today are some of the key things that I think are really important for kicking off a project, especially a software implementation project, and the reason why I think they're critical to the success of the project. So the key thing I will first do with any organisation I go into is identify the roles within the project. It sounds quite a small thing to do, but it really is critical for the project success. And the reason being is it gives everyone an understanding of who they need to be speaking with, and it makes sure that the business becomes really involved in the project rather than it just being an IT project that's run on the side, and it being something done to the business rather than something done with the business. So the key roles that I try to identify at the start is to establish who is accountable for the project and who is going to be the final decision maker on it. And that role is the project sponsor, and it should always be someone within the business that is the project sponsor. And the reason for that is they need to make sure that the system being put in to their organisation meets their needs and achieves the benefits that they're looking for, and they get the results that they want. ensuring timely communication and updates for all stakeholders throughout the project. It's really important to identify all the key stakeholders. So anyone that may be impacted by the project or people that may be getting something from the project that's critical to their success. So they really got a buy-in to this project being successful. Setting clear expectations about what the individuals will be responsible for. It can be really challenging to get people to take on an ownership role, but it's also really important for people to be very clear as to who's going to be responsible for what. So you don't have a panel of decision makers, you have an agreed group who'll be making decisions in relation to specific topics, noting that your project sponsor will be always the person who's accountable for making the final decision. It removes ambiguity, which can lead to misunderstandings. Sometimes what you'll find with projects is you have multiple people wanting to make decisions. The decision won't be made, or you could have a decision where you build something that's in conflict with what someone else wants. And you could then end up in a situation where you've spent a lot of money on a build that's not required, or spent a lot of money on a build that doesn't link to the initial benefits or vision of the project. Do you have any questions before I move on there, Mandy?
I think one of the key questions from that information, Ashley, which is really fantastic and thought-provoking, is that in our sector, human services organisations really come to that whole idea of decision-making and accountability, often with a mindset around teams and people working in teams and teams being responsible for certain things. So how do you, I'm sure for some people listening to this, they'd be going, oh, well, we wouldn't have a particular person. This would be a team thing. We need everybody to be involved. How do you find this balance, and what are the benefits of saying, actually, there does need to be a particular person who's accountable?
So one way of identifying your project sponsor is the person who this is going to be, the person who gets the most out of it, who's really looking for this new system. And if it's a whole organization, you may have your project sponsor as an executive who's responsible for it being going in and being successful. So what you can do is a couple of things. We would always have a working group where you have conversations about more of the kind of fields that you need and the lower lying detail that a executive may need to know. Then you have a steering committee. So when you have a steering committee, you essentially take decisions and risks and concerns about the project to your steering committee, where you would still inform everybody. But then you'd have your project sponsor. So one way of doing it is by saying everyone gets to input and provide guidance and their recommendations into a decision, but we'll just have one person making the ultimate decision, because they're responsible for owning the goal of the project. They're responsible for owning the success of the project. They're responsible for making sure it's delivered on time and on budget. So it's really trying to empower that role for that person to be the project manager's peer support in making sure that you don't overspend on the project. You hit the timeline you need to hit, and also that you're making sure you're achieving the vision and the goal of the project.